I believe that we are all innately musical, and for each one of us we need to have ways of expressing that musicality. For children within schools, for them to be able to make music with their friends in a situation where they feel safe, in a situation where they've got expertise, children grow in confidence, their concentration improves, their self-esteem goes up, their whole personality just sort of is lifted.
The wider Opportunity Pledge was that all primary school children should have the opportunity to learn a musical instrument. In Somerset, the task of delivering that pledge fell to the County Council's music service, Somerset Music.
We had 9 Pathfinder schools. We trialled out various different ways of delivering this kind of work for a year, and we worked very closely with the head teachers from those schools to decide how best to roll out this kind of tuition within Somerset. And those head teachers very kindly formed a forum for us so that we would liaise with them on a regular basis to see how things were going.
David Hayward represents the county's 223 primary head teachers. He consults with the schools and then gives advice and guidance to Somerset Music.
If you want to give the opportunity, as the pledge said, to every primary child, then one of the best ways to deliver that is by whole class teaching. And it also gives the children an opportunity to engage with each other and see that everyone actually can be a musician.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Up until then, the musical lessons had tended to be taught either in small groups or on a one-to-one basis. And if you were talking about giving that opportunity to all the children in primary schools, you would need more hours in the day than there are days in a week. And also, you know, for the children, they're quite used to learning in a whole class situation, obviously for their numeracy or their literacy. So it would make sense for those children to learn their music in the same way. We aim it at year 3 or upwards. It has to be Key Stage 2. And the work has to be free to the children for a year and a whole class instrumental or vocal tuition.
Somerset is predominantly a rural county with a number of small and very small primary schools.
Morning, Bev.
If we had distributed the funding purely on a per pupil ratio, then that would have disadvantaged the smallest of primary schools, and they would really not have been able to take up this scheme.
Hi, Bethany. Hello,
so we
Megan.
looked at a way of distributing the funding
Marcus,
to be able to afford
Chloe.
a teacher
Hello, Adam.
for a class. And that has
Hi, Joseph.
paid dividends in the fact that we are now 83% of the schools covered, with nearly 10,000 pupils taking up the tuition.
So I'm going to need somebody very grown up to go and get... Stephen, will you go and get a trumpet for me? The hierarchy in Somerset Music were very keen on the larger group tuition. Okay.
The whole thing is that it's the initial experience is much better in a wider group. Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly believe that.
We'll start as we always do. Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
I've never ever considered teaching a whole class. I mean, if I think about it long enough, I wouldn't do it now. But actually, I quite enjoy it. It's informed all the other teaching that I do. And that's the thing that I now see one-to-one rather than the norm. It's an exception, but it's such a privilege to have this sort of arsenal of tactics to tackle the one-to-one problems.
I think children who perhaps wouldn't have thought they would be able to do it find themselves doing it in the context of the group because they're joining in with everybody. They suddenly find there's something that they can do. And maybe some of the less able children who perhaps aren't coping as well academically will find suddenly, yeah, I can do this and I can succeed at doing this where I can't maybe in other things. And that does rub off on other subjects then as well.
Same as we did just now.
They learn from each other. They enjoy the sort of social aspect of playing all together.
We're going to use the pattern down, down, up, down, down, up.
There's no sort of stigma then to learning an instrument, which sometimes some children get if they're taken out of a class lesson to go and do a music lesson. This time the whole class are doing it. It's just something that they do.
C.
And I think they can learn a lot of things through games and through joint activities, which can make learning some of the concepts much more fun, which you couldn't do in the same way with an individual or a very small group.
Don't forget, pay attention to what I'm doing, because you're going to come and do some call and response, yes? I find that samba is accessible to everyone. Because it's a visual thing, they can all participate. You have some with learning difficulties, some with disabilities. They're all part and parcel of it. They can all have access to playing in samba. The experience of being able to work together as a big unit, and also supporting each other, whereas if you had one on each instrument, they're slightly isolated.
In Somerset, we've worked very closely with our group of instrumental tutors, and we've made sure that we work with tutors who are happy to deliver whole class work.
Now, who's brave? Who's going to come and have a go at what I've been doing?
Originally, 3 or 4 years ago, that was quite a small number of our tutors, but over time, as their colleagues have seen how successful the work is, more and more of our staff have wanted to be involved.
Whenever Lottie plays, you play.
We've had a lot of opportunities for staff to observe their colleagues, and we do support them by regular inset training.
What's your name? Aaron, 3, 4. I have since enrolled in the Key Stage 2 CPD course run by Guildhall Trinity, which has been really eye-opening. Spent the summer reading up on how I should do what I've been doing for 3 years better, and it's worked. It's worked. Try I am Sam. I've got a pattern to my lessons, and I've planned it with activities that I can sell to the kids. I am Ewan.
Right, let's just try that turn around again and then we'll try the whole song.
The projects which work best are the ones where we work in partnership with the school. And nowadays we send in one of our musical tutors who would work alongside the classroom teacher. The children love to see their teacher learning alongside them and get a real buzz out of watching their teacher struggle with the instruments in the same way as they do. And in many cases we have colleagues in the schools who are now delivering whole class work themselves.
Linda Roberts is the music coordinator in the school, and she sits in on my lessons and did so all of last year, and has then taken it on to teach it to the years below so that she can then continue it down through the school. So eventually I shall be obsolete, because when I finished year 6, then she would have done enough years to be able to do it without me. 2 G7s, 2 C7s. The student ukulele only cost about £10 to £12 each, and ukulele seems to have taken off in the area as being a very popular instrument in a lot of the schools I teach in. Everybody happy with G7? You can produce a chord within 5 minutes of being given a ukulele, so they're singing a song and playing right from the very beginning. So the technical issues are not the same as with some of the other instruments.
Schools can access instruments either by hiring them from Somerset Music, or quite often schools like to invest in their own instruments. It can be any instrument. It could be ukuleles where the cost is very small per instrument, and often then you find that the children own their own instruments. They would buy their own so they can take them home. Or the schools may involve their PTA or a local community group and raise money to provide instruments which they can then keep within the school and use for the projects.
If they hire them from Somerset Music, then they get an automatic repair service. We can replace one for one whilst it's being repaired. Funnily enough, the success of the Wider Opportunities project this time last year meant that there was a brass shortage for about 6 to 8 weeks in this country. It was quite good that we were victims of our own success, in truth.
So play the blocks, but also play the gaps. Can we do that?
Now, music's not for everybody, and brass playing certainly isn't for everybody. So I'm very conscious that I've got to make my class music-orientated rather than selling the brass message. Because the kids that enjoy it will take that up that allows us to teach them in smaller groups where they get that extra sort of technique, but the interest has got to be there first, because playing a brass instrument or playing any instrument requires that extra bit of dedication that not everybody has.
From wider opportunities, we go on to offer large group tuition. Sometimes that would be the same instrument as they've been doing before, but there are students as well who then think, well, maybe I could do music, maybe I could try something else. So yes, we have had students that have started other instruments too.
After the first year, schools will either themselves fund a second year, or they will decide to open it out to large groups where the children are then asked to make a contribution towards the cost of that lesson. It may be £1 or a couple of pounds, and it would mean that they could then continue with their tuition.
Now we're in the midst at the moment of trying to build bridges between primary schools and senior schools, so that that work and that experience that they've got and the funding that's been used is not wasted, that when they go there it just stops. Well done. We can remember, we can put it all together, and then we'll be able to perform it probably to the rest of the school or whatever.
If a child can learn a musical instrument, they should be able to then perform. Therefore, they are able to make a positive contribution to their community. And for me, one of the joys of the Somerset way of organising wider opportunities is there is opportunity for children to perform within their community.
Students from a number of the schools where I teach have taken their wider opportunities groups into old people's homes. They've taken part in different local festivals. We had a river festival here in Taunton where the ukulele played along with an adult ukulele club, and they were the warm-up act for the Wurzels.
The years 5 and 6, we're looking at collaborative projects, but good for the kids to meet someone else who's as weird as they are. Because when they play the instruments, they think, well, you know, I am from Mars. When they meet other Martians, they're, oh, maybe I'm not from Mars. Excellent. The year 6s who moved up had the experience of music. Some of them have said no as a reasoned response, because I've tried it, found I didn't like it, didn't suit me, moving on.
We're going to be taking part as part of the Bridgewater Carnival music experience. They won't be together in schools, they'll all mix in, find some new friends for the first time and find they've got a common denominator by what they're playing.
The school here has a lot of music going on, but some of the other schools I go into, there are no other instrumental lessons going on, so the only opportunity those children get to actually play an instrument is in the wider opportunities lesson.